So I'm going to present you this subject of restoration of degraded Mediterranean rangelands. I worked on this subject for many years, not only in Greece but in other Mediterranean countries. I visited several countries on for this particular subject, and also I cooperated with several scientists working on this subject in other countries. And for a brief time I was also the member of the National Committee in Greece to combat desertification. So I hope I have to tell you some interesting things about the desertification of rangelands. Well, the structure of the lecture, I have 10 chapters or sections. I'll start with some introduction, then I'll define a little bit, I'll discuss the relation between desertification and grazing, so that to be familiar how they both are connected. Then I'll go to degradation causes in rangelands. I'll speak about some ecological considerations, and then I'll go to the main subject, which is restoration potential, the restoration measures or mitigation measures, some people call them mitigation measures, and then I'm going to present you some case studies from all over the Mediterranean. Well, let's start with some definitions so that we understand each other. When we say rangelands, we mean marginal lands that are mainly used by domestic animals, but wild as well. So there are marginal lands compared to Arab lands or even to forests. When we say Mediterranean rangelands, we mean the grazing lands which are found in the Mediterranean isoclimatic zone of the Mediterranean basin countries. What is this isoclimatic zone? Is the area where the climate is seasonal. We have hot and dry summers, followed by rainy and cool winters. So this is the definition of the Mediterranean climate, and this is the climate which are present in the Mediterranean countries. So we speak about the rangelands which are grown in this particular zone. What do we mean by degraded rangelands? We mean rangelands which provide forage of limited quantity and quality. They do provide forage as well, this rangeland, but this forage they provide is very limited, both in quantity and quality. That's why they're called degraded. And finally, what do we mean restoration? According to the definition of the Society of Ecological Restoration of 2002, maybe some of you are familiar with that is a booklet. It says that restoration means repair rangelands with respect to their health, integrity, and self-sustainability. It's a very big job to do, okay? But this is restoration. Well, let's go to a more specific definition of rangelands. Rangelands are plant communities composed of herbaceous or woody species that produce forage primarily used as feed by domestic animals, but of course wild as well, but primarily for domestic animals. There are three main types of rangelands, Mediterranean rangelands, are the grasslands, which also include the halophytic steppes grown in northern Africa, in the drier part. Also they're grouped in the grasslands. Then we have in the middle, we have the shrublands. Shrublands in the Mediterranean are known with different terms. The ones which are grown in the drier part are known as frigana in the Eastern Mediterranean, especially in Greece, bata in the Middle East. In the West Mediterranean are tomillares. All of them are part of shrublands. But the typical shrublands are those which are called maqui, maquia, matoral in Spain, garriga, several terms. This is the problem, the beauty of the Mediterranean. Many languages, many terms, but all mean the same thing, shrublands. Okay, And the third group is the open forests. Open forests also a variety of types all over the Mediterranean, also called silvopastoral systems because they combine pastoralism and silvo wood production. And the most known, well known, are the ones which are in Siberian Peninsula, the Hesses and Montados. We'll talk about them later. So these are the main types of rangelands in the Mediterranean region, Mediterranean isoclimatic zone. Let's speak now about the animals. Okay, let's put the whole slide. Which animals are domestic animals grazing in rangelands? Mainly sheep, goats, cattle, and camels. These are the main type of animals. If we convert them to sheep equivalents, so that to be able to compare, the whole Mediterranean there are 496 million sheep equivalents. Say sheep, but not only sheep, camels and cattle as well. In the Mediterranean zone are only 121 millions, which are going to speak about. Now, what about the stocking rate in the Mediterranean zone? The global stocking rate is the number of animals per unit area, okay, per unit area. So the global figure is about 1.8. But look, in the North Mediterranean is 1.1, low, which is close to the grazing capacity or less than the grazing capacity. But in the South Mediterranean, in the Northern Africa in other words, the stocking rate is 3.7, which is much higher than the grazing capacity. Of course, based on data on FAO stat in 2008. But today it have not changed very much. So you see that although the global figure is, although it's high, but it's not very high, but the distribution is not the same in the whole Mediterranean. So we say we have irrational grazed rangelands. That's why some of them, or a large part of them, are degraded. If you want to interrupt me, please feel free. Okay, just if you don't understand something, yes, please.
What's the difference between the whole Mediterranean and the Mediterranean zone? Or it's the whole world?
You mean here, this one?
No, the upper one.
The upper one, Mediterranean zone.
Yeah, and the upper one is...
Yeah, whole Mediterranean is, I'll explain, now I have a figure to tell you, it's all Mediterranean countries, but not all Mediterranean countries have Mediterranean climate. France, for example, is considered Mediterranean country, but it's not Mediterranean climate everywhere. I'll explain to you later. Any other questions? Please interrupt me anytime you want. Yes?
Grazing capacity, how do you calculate?
Grazing capacity. Grazing capacity is the maximum number of animals that can be fed in a rangeland without degradation. The ideal number of animals, that's what is we could have in a rangeland. This is called grazing capacity, like carrying capacity. So what is the carrying capacity of this room? Okay, maybe more than the carrying capacity, because I see that you're very close each other. Anyway, in rangeland we speak about grazing capacity, and we compare that with stocking rate, which stocking rate is how many animals actually are grazing, not how many should be grazed, but how many are grazed. We'll talk about it later as well. Here is the answer to your question. The total Mediterranean area is 9 million square kilometers, but we mean about 17 Mediterranean countries. You see them with this sign. All of these are considered Mediterranean countries, but the Mediterranean zone is only the one which is dashed with these lines, okay? This is considered as a typical Mediterranean zone. And this is only 15% of the whole Mediterranean, or 1.4 million square kilometers, okay? This is the typical, which has the typical Mediterranean climate, we spoke earlier. So in this Mediterranean zone, the pastures, or let's say the grasslands, which are dominated by herbaceous species, is 38%. But the majority is forest and shrublands, which means that most of the rangelands in the Mediterranean region are covered by woody species, not by herbaceous species. And this is our problem in dealing with the rest of the Europe. In Northern Europe, as you know, some of you maybe you know, when they say rangeland, they speak grasslands because everything is grass. But here in the Mediterranean, grass is not so prevalent as in Northern Europe, mostly is shrubs. And this is the whole Mediterranean, not only in Greece. Any questions? Did I answer your question now? Okay. Well, let's speak now. Let's go back to the definition of desertification. Of course, you've heard about that. I assume that some of the things you know already, but if you don't know, please let me know, okay? So, the term desertification was coined officially in the summit, in the Rio summit in 1992. It was a big summit in that particular year. One of the issues that were coined there in this summit was the term desertification. Why? Because people saw that there's a problem of losing resources all over the world. Of course, the science of desertification started much earlier, in the 70s, when it was a big drought in the Sahel. Sahel is the zone between Sahara and the tropics. The zone which is intermediate between the very dry Sahara, the desert, and the tropics, which is, of course, a lot of rain. So this is Sahel. The Sahel was shrinked in the 70s because it was 3 or 4 years very big drought. And so people started to worry about that we're losing resources. Sahara is expanded. So Africa is going to become Sahara. And then people started to worry about this particular problem. That's why in the 1992, this issue came in the summit, and so they decided officially to develop a kind of agreement on how to combat desertification. So, in the definition that they decided about this term is land degradation in arid, semi-arid, and dry subhumid areas resulting from various factors, including climate variations and human activities. The reason I put this definition on this slide is that to ask you, what of the two factors which cause desertification you think are the most important? Climatic variation or human activities? That's a question for you. What do you think? What do you know? What do you have heard? There are two various factors, they say in the definition, but the most important are climate variations and human activities. What do you think? What is the most important factor? Do? Very good, very good. Because most people claim that climate change is the most important factor. I think that human activities are the worst than climate change in causing desertification. And the reason I'm saying that is because livestock husbandry is a human activity. That's why it causes desertification. You had a question to ask?
Human activity led to climate variation, by pollution and by...
Say again?
Human activity,
yeah.
anthropogenic activity led to the climate change.
Yeah, of course they're connected. They're connected, but not necessarily. Not necessarily. Okay. But here, when I say human activities, I mean activities which lead directly to desertification, not through climatic change. Okay. But you know that we had climate change many times in the past. In the past century, In the 19th century we had climate change, and this turned around. I mean, there are people who say that of course we have a worsening of the climate, it becomes warmer, but in the past it was the same thing, and after some years they came back. We don't know if our present change is going to return, but in the past it happened, okay? So livestock husbandry is activity, major human activity, especially in dry lands, as you discussed in the previous lecture. And in these rangelands, in the northern Mediterranean Europe, is about 390,000 square kilometers, and of those, it estimates that about 30% of this particular area is degraded. Well, let's see some pictures of the Eastern Mediterranean first: Turkey, Cyprus, Albania, Crete, Chios Island, and mainland Greece. These are rangelands which are degraded, not only in Greece, also in Turkey, in Albania, in Cyprus, and so on. And some pictures from the Western Mediterranean: Italy, Apulia, Italy, Sardinia, Corsica, Dehesa, Spain. We'll talk about this kind of desertification. Almeria, Spain, and Montado, Portugal. We'll speak about what kind of desertification we have in Montado. Anyway, so this desertification is all over the Mediterranean, including the northern Mediterranean, although the grazing capacity, the grazing pressure, the stocking rate is not so high as in the South Mediterranean. Well, let's analyze a little bit the term grazing. What is grazing? Grazing is a very complex activity. It involves at least 4 different kinds of activities: number of animals, kind of animals, grazing system, and production system. So when they say grazing, all these things are involved. Let's analyze them a little bit more. When we say animal numbers, most people speak about overgrazing. Overgrazing means, as the term says, more animals than rangeland can sustain. And so everybody speaks about overgrazing. And this is true to a large extent. But it's not totally true, because also undergrazing causes degradation. Not only overgrazing, this is overgrazing, but here is undergrazing. Here, not many animals to eat up all this vegetation. And what happens then? Fires come in, wildfires, which destroy all this vegetation, and then comes the erosion and degradation. So it's not only overgrazing, but also undergrazing involved in the degradation of rangelands. Of course, not equally, okay? Overgrazing is much more important, but we should have in mind that not only overgrazing, also undergrazing.
Sorry,
Yes.
I didn't understand what you mean about the undergrazing.
Undergrazing, we have less animals than the rangeland can sustain, less animals than the grazing capacity.
Okay, for example,
For example, in this room,
one animal is not suitable for a special rangeland. You mean?
number. We speak about numbers.
Number is overgrazing. When we say about
If we have more animals than the rangeland can sustain,
yes,
we have overgrazing. If we have less animals than the rangeland can sustain, we have undergrazing.
why is the problem?
Because
In this case, you can save the ecosystem.
Because you see, here is undergrazing. Not enough animals to eat up all the vegetation, so the vegetation grows up, and we have wildfires after the.
Okay. It means the management of it back to the management.
Yeah, it's associated with management. Yes, it's associated with management. And overgrazing also management is, everything is management. So yeah, both of them are mismanagement. So we speak about human activities here, okay? Any other questions? Yeah.
Undergrazing is usually related to land abandonment. What the professor tries to explain you, that abandonment creates problems. It might create problems.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, but I assume that some things are known, but again, if you think that something is not known to you, please interrupt me, okay? So, here is the overgrazing and the undergrazing in more detail. More animals than the grazing capacity, that's the overgrazing. Grazing capacity, I repeat, is the ideal number or the maximum number of animals that a rangeland can sustain. Okay? And we have here more animals in overgrazing. So these additional animals, the extra animals, cause impact on vegetative cover. They affect the soil, especially the erosion. And there is an interaction with wildfires and drought. Overgrazed areas are more susceptible to drought than properly grazed areas. And then, but overgrazing is the most studied issue. There is a lot of literature discussion about the impact of overgrazing on rangelands and the desertification. You'll see that in the literature many times. Now, the undergrazing is a less studied issue because there are less animals than the grazing capacity. That's undergrazing. We have few animals. Okay? And in this, there is something in the slide here which says we have biomass accumulation because of this undergrazing, biomass accumulation, and this accumulation of biomass leads to proper wildfires, which follow again erosion, degradation, and so on. It's clear so far? Eh? Okay. Now, let's go to the kind of animals. We spoke about number of animals, let's go to kind of animals. It depends on when we speak about desertification, degradation, we have to refer to the kind of animal. Which animals are grazing there? Because sheep are mainly eating herbaceous species, are grazers, we call them grazers. But goats like also the woody species, and they're called browsers. So, if we have only goat, only sheep, they eat up all the grasses and the herbaceous species. And the shrubs are left, or are not grazed so much. But if we have goats, then goats will sometimes prefer shrubs, of course the wheat grass as well, but mainly shrubs, so they will have an impact on the shrubs as well. If we have both of them, then both of the kinds of animals, kinds of plants can be grazed, okay? So we should always specify which kind of animals are causing the problem of desertification. Here again, grazer versus browsers, sheep versus goat. Goats, because they eat shrubs and trees as well, so they're blamed for the destruction of Mediterranean forest. There's a whole literature, especially in the last century, in the middle of the last century, which was saying that goats are the main enemy of the forest, of the Mediterranean forest. The reason we don't have forests in the Mediterranean region is because of the goats. As a matter of fact, FAO in the 40s promoted a campaign to slaughter the goats from all the Mediterranean countries. To slaughter the goats. And here in Greece there was a law which was farmers were paid per head to slaughter the goats because they were enemies to the forest. And in Yugoslavia, that time was Tito there. Tito was a strong leader, as you know. He killed all the goats. And in Greece as well, we had a dictatorship at that time. the goats were disappeared for a time, but then the German occupation came and people became very poor and started goats coming in again, because the goat is the cow of the poor. Okay? Of course, all these things now have changed. Now goats are considered as ecological minded animals, and the management is to blame, not the goats. Okay? If goats destroy the forest, it's not because man is responsible for the goats. Okay? So it's management one which. Okay? All right. Okay.
Human is responsible.
Okay, that's right.
Not goats.
So now the prevailing idea all over the Mediterranean, but the world, is that goats, animals in general, have a beneficial role in the ecosystem. We'll speak about that later. Okay? So everything changed, but I'll tell you the history because I'm very old compared to you. In the past, I had very big problem to speak about goats in France, in Portugal, in Spain. When I was like you, young, and I was going to the meetings and speaking about goats, say, "Oh, goats destroy the forest," because I'm a forester, okay? And so I would consider that I was responsible for bringing goats to destroy the forest. But this have changed now, okay? Now it's completely different. Now let's go about the grazing system. Here is a rotational grazing system, which involves some fences, and the animals graze in both sections of the. So this is the advanced scientific system. But the prevalent system is this one, the communal system, which is very common in the Eastern Mediterranean countries, in Greece, in Northern Africa, in many countries in the Middle East, not so much in the Western European countries, but the problem sometimes is because of this system, not because of the overgrazing or undergrazing, because of the system. Because in the communal system, the rangelands belong to everybody, so everybody can graze there as much as he wants without taking care of what is going there. It's like the air we breathe. We breathe the air, okay? The air is the oxygen. It's a common good, isn't it? Everybody, all of us breathe oxygen. But who takes care of the oxygen? Tell me, any of you takes care of the oxygen in the air, in the atmosphere? No, it's a common good. The same with communal rangelands. It's considered as common good, so everybody goes there, grazes as much as he wants, overgrazes, undergrazes, that's what he wants, and the rangeland, of course, is exhausted and is degraded. It's clear? I can speak about hours about this subject, okay? But just some summary of the grazing system. We have private versus communal lands. In Northern Europe, for example, all the rangelands are private. They belong to somebody, so he is taking care of this rangeland. But here in Greece and other Mediterranean countries where the rangelands are communal, there's no private. Everybody can have a right to graze, but not to take care. Now, in the communal grazing, could be separated with shepherds, but could take care of the sheep. But if you go to some areas, like the islands, the Greek islands, the animals are free, no shepherds, free grazing. Yes?
But the rangeland is free for grazing. The government control the situation. For example, in my country, we have private and also governmental.
Yes, yeah.
But governmental land is controlled by the governmental organization, for example, the Ministry of Agriculture, and give some, for example, allow to special people. We have a background, long background, for example, 100 years.
Yeah.
They are using this rangeland and they are responsible. And government control these people.
Yeah,
And, they don't
that's right. This
animal and
you are from Iran. Okay, I haven't been in Iran, so I don't. I've read the.
very interesting
Okay.
rangeland
Yeah.
area also.
Theoretically, the government has the control,
Yes.
but the government does not do the job very well all the time.
Yes, you are right.
That's why,
We
okay.
have also this problem.
Just to avoid misunderstanding, communal grazing is technically is very bad system, but socially is very good system because all poor people can go and graze and make a living. Socially is very good system. That's why it was maintained so many years. But technically is not very good. So it depends on how good the government does the job. And I haven't been in Iran, but in other countries I've been, I didn't see that the government does a good job in controlling the grazing in communal
Yes,
lands.
sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not.
Okay. So we have infrastructure. This depends on infrastructure. I'll tell you later. Is about watering points and so on. If the grazing is sedentary or nomadic. Sometimes in some countries in the north in North Africa, they apply the nomadic grazing. Okay, or the transhumance in the northern Mediterranean. And when we speak about animal activities, sorry for the slides, we don't mean only grazing. Grazing, I told you, is a very general term. Actually, the animals, when they graze out, they feed, they move, they ruminate, they lane. So there are many activities which animal does when it is in the rangeland. It's not only feeding; it does many other things. So all these things are involved in the degradation. Now, another factor is the production system. If the production system is extensive or intensive, and who can tell me what factor determines if a system is intensive or extensive? Any system.
The economic value.
Economic value. More specific terms, more specific.
The price of the product.
Yes, but I would say the inputs. How many inputs? If the inputs are too many, then the system becomes intensive. But if the inputs are not fewer or nothing, then the animals are based only on rangeland, so the system is extensive. So, so it depends on how the system is structured in the particular rangeland. Of course, the market, of course, as you said. Another thing is policies. Policies, very important policies. For example, here in Europe, in the Mediterranean Union, in the European Union, farmers get subsidies. If they get subsidies, they can buy good food for the animals. Okay? And if the animals give them good food, they could produce more milk. So the system becomes more intensive, less extensive, is less dependent on the forage produced in the rangelands. So policies are very important as well. Do you understand the issue, or you want me to repeat? Yeah? Here in Greece, for example, most farmers which had their flocks in extensive system, now it turned out to intensive because they have money to buy good food, corn, maize in other words, or good food, hay, and feed the animals in the barn. And so if the animals feed in the barn, quite to take them in the rangeland. And of course, social conditions, this is very important. For example, in Africa, I don't remember which country, the more animals you have, the more prestige you have in the society, because you have many animals. So you have high prestige. So this makes a role as well.
This used to be also true in Greece during the 40s probably.
Yeah. Well, so its definition is very complex, and here's the complex process, and the end result. We still look at the end result. Look at the end result. Look in a very dry area, in a humid area. Okay, all factors involved, but the end result is this one. and another issue which is very important for desertification is the wildfires. In many parts of the Mediterranean, people, shepherds, farmers, what do? They, in order to get rid of the unpalatable species which animals don't eat, they set wildfires. This happens in Greece, many parts, happens in Corsica, in Sardinia, not so much in Northern Africa because there are too many animals, so there's not something, so everything is eaten up. So too many animals, so little vegetation, so everything is eaten up. But in the past it was much more prevalent, this practice of setting fires. And after investigating the subject for many years here in Greece and other countries, we found that if you apply only overgrazing, it's not so big problem. But if you combine overgrazing and wildfires, then you have desertification. In other words, desertification in rangelands is a combination of overgrazing and wildfires. Why? Because with wildfires, all the woody species, the weeds are burned, and the animals can chew them up afterwards and destroy them. But if you don't put fires, then this species will stay there. So we don't have you don't have complete degradation or desertification.
And also the erosion risk after.
The erosion, yes. Here, for example, you see, although it's degraded, but you see still vegetation here. This is vegetation, some shrubs and so on. But here, in this particular part, which was a fire and then overgrazing, then it became just desert. And I developed a model about this subject some years ago by saying that okay, the fire is part of the Mediterranean ecosystem, part of the Mediterranean environment. Fire was here before men came, so it was not invented by people. Fire was here for many years before men arrived in the Mediterranean region. Well, so if you put fire, a mature ecosystem, I did a study in the Afghan ecosystem, which is a shrubland in the dry areas. So the fire is modifies the system and burns all the woody vegetation. And the fire, of course, is set by farmers. It's not natural fire, excuse me. But if you leave the system after the fire, then through the natural succession, we'll go back to the original state. Okay, it's a matter of time to return the system, because all the Mediterranean ecosystems are adapted to fire. So if you don't touch this burnt system, we'll go back again to the original situation, at least close to the original situation. But if you put animals in here, then they will eat up all the good vegetation, the desirable vegetation, and they will leave the undesirable vegetation untouched. And then the system will degrade afterwards. In other words, through two feedback loops here and there, which which interfere in order to degrade the ecosystem because of this grazing. And if the grazing, the more number of sheep you put there, the more of sheep you have there, the more vegetation desirable is eaten up. Okay, and so this vegetation undesirable is free of competition, and so it grows up, and eventually, instead of having the original system, you have another one which is modified and more degraded. I'm sure it's a big issue. I don't want to spend more time because not the issue of this lecture today. But if somebody wants more about that, I can give you afterwards literature to read if he's interested on the combination of wildfires and overgrazing. About policies, which I said before, look here. These are natural is mykia, vegetation, shrublands, grazed by animals. But because of the national policy, all these were cleared and people planted olive trees. So the system has been destroyed. Why? Because look here, all this soil is bare, so the erosion will come up. All this, you see, all these are eroded areas because of very steep slopes, and olive tree is monoculture, so it does not cover the soil, so heavy erosion. So because of the policies, not grazing, policies only. And here is from Corsica. 20 years ago, the policy of the European Union, the Mediterranean, in the European countries was that the more animals you have, the more subsidies you get, more money. So people tended to increase the numbers, like here in Corsica, so they destroyed everything, overgrazing. Of course, this policy fortunately changed now, but it was for 20 years was this policy prevalent in the Mediterranean countries. So many people increased their numbers in order to get more money. So we had overgrazing. Well, the degradation causes, which are the degradation causes in Mediterranean? They're not the same in North and the South Mediterranean. In the North Mediterranean, the degradation causes are rural exodus, urbanization. People are moving from mountains to the towns. Of course, you know that issue. All of you are from North Mediterranean. Abandonment of mountain grasslands. Intensification of animal production in lowlands because they feed them indoors instead of grazed out. And then the grazing pressure is located near specific points, near towns, near watering points. So the impact is not all over the area, but only the specific areas. Okay, of course, because of this abandonment, we have devastating wildfires in rangelands and forests. So these are degradation causes in northern Mediterranean. In the South Mediterranean, let's see some pictures here. Okay, is the desert shrublands, a fire comes, a wildfire, which of course opens up, then put the animal. Here we have animal sheds. So you see, the pressure is around the animal shed, not all over. Here is not so degraded, but here where the animal sheds, and also around the watering points. So in northern Mediterranean, the grazing pressure is not all over the area, but only in specific where the animals live or drink, so it's located. Okay, it's located in specific areas, specific sites. Now, in the South Mediterranean, we have different problems. We have increased rural population. Population is expanding, exploding in Northern Africa. So people, in order to live, they have they buy more animals. And the rangelands are converted to Arab lands in order to produce food, to produce wheat or barley to feed people. And then the rangelands are reduced, and because of the high number of animals, we have increased pressure in these particular areas remaining, and we have the rangeland desertification all over the remaining rangelands. So completely different, completely different reasons, but all lead to the same situation. But it's different in the north and in the south. Do you understand that issue, or you want to repeat? So it's not the same in Northern Africa compared to Southern Europe. In Southern Europe we have localized degradation, but in Northern Africa it's widespread. Yeah, let's see some pictures from coastal zone from Tunisia, the coastal zone, and the dry zone. Look at the dry zone. A lot of animals. I don't know what the animals eat here. Nothing. And I'll go to some ecological considerations to see that grazing is both beneficial and, of course, damaging. But let's go to the history first of all. The men came in the Mediterranean around 10,000 years before Christ. Okay, around maybe 8 to 10,000 years before Christ. But that time, Mediterranean did not have any domestic animals. They had wild animals. And I put here that in Crete, in the island of Crete, probably most of you know it, there were pygmy elephants, hippos, and deer, wild animals. And in Cyprus and Sardinia, also were such wild animals up in the 6,000 to 5,000 BC. But this animal disappeared for unknown reasons. Probably killed by people, competition with domestic animals. Nobody knows. It's not clear in the literature. But all these animals were replaced by domestic animals, which are grazing here in the Mediterranean. In the Eastern Mediterranean, in the Holocene, the domestic animals came in 10,000 to 6,000 BC. In Crete, for example, to 6,000 in 5,000, which is the Eastern Mediterranean. But in the Western Mediterranean, for example, in Spain, the animals came 3,000 BC. There was a big time for the animals to go from eastern to the western part of the Mediterranean. It was not going like today fast, okay? It was going very, very slowly. And here you see some pictures of the animals which are depicted in the classical books. In the beginning, the grazing was free, okay, open and free. But then they became sedentary. I mean, animals stayed in a place. This must happen around the classical period in Greece, or especially established in the Roman period. By that time, animals were grazing free, and of course they had impact on the ecosystems, either by direct grazing or especially by opening up the forests in order to convert them to rangelands. And goats were used in this particular case to control the woody species. But when the domestic animals came in Mediterranean, they found the plants ready, resistant to grazing. Why? Because they were adapted from the wild animals. Hippos, for example, were eating grass, shrubs. So plants were already adapted. What they did? Developed spines. You see, this is a acer tree in Crete. Up to here, where the goats can reach, it's full of spines. But then in the upper part, there are no spines. So this plant learned from its experience to develop spines to push out the animals which were grazing on them. Or developing essential oils, aromatic essential oils, which we like them, people like it very much, but animals don't like it. Animals don't eat thymus because it's too aromatic for them. It's just against their taste. Another adaptation is, you see, this is an olive tree. Can you imagine? This is an olive tree. It's a shrub, chewed by goats, but still stays there. Why? Because it develops spines, which animals cannot eat very much. Or this is a grass, well known, Dactylogromata, look, prostrate. So sheep cannot graze it totally, because that's why this plant survives in the grazed environments, because it's prostrate form. Or another adaptation is deep root system to withstand the drought, or to develop subterranean bud seeds, like the Trifolium subterraneum is a legume which puts the seeds under the soil, so sheep cannot graze them. So, in other words, plants were developed all kinds of defensive mechanisms to withstand grazing. That's why we say that grazing is part of the Mediterranean environment. Okay? It was there before the domestic animals came.
Sorry?
Yes.
Deep roots is an adaptation
To drought.
Ah,
To drought. But of course to reproduction, in order to be able to reproduce as well. We come again to the problem of goats. Goats are browsers. They have a predilection for woody species, but goats are the best animals that nature has invented, because they can convert wood to protein. Tell me another animal which can convert wood to protein.
Termites.
What? I don't know. Grazing now is being realized by all people now, that grazing is very important to the ecosystem, to Mediterranean ecosystems, because it can reduce the fire hazard. Fires, as I said, are part of the ecosystem, of the Mediterranean ecosystems, but by grazing you reduce the fuel. And here what they do here in France, this is a picture from France. They put sheep into the forest in the fire lines to graze up the vegetation, and then reduce the fire risk. So very important, the animals to reduce the grazing, to reduce the fire risk. And of course, grazing is very important because it keeps the Mediterranean ecosystem open, so very resistant to wildfires, okay? And of course, they beautify also the landscape. Why? Because imagine that an environment, a landscape full of forests, dense forests. This is not a typical Mediterranean environment. Typical Mediterranean environment is a heterogeneous, open, dense, semi-dense, and so on. This is the variety, and this is the beauty of the Mediterranean. Yeah? Mosaic. Okay. So,
I have a question.
yeah.
You mentioned about the fire risk and grazing in open forest area because of the reduced fire. But what about the regeneration? Because grazing directly affect on the regeneration of the
Very good question.
trees.
Here's the answer. To apply proper grazing, the right number of animals in the right season, the right system, and so on. Yeah, that's what the proper numbers. Look, if you have a dense forest and you want to regenerate it, then you put the animals aside, not in the forest, okay? Yeah, or you can put the forest, but have the right number, not too many animals, or not goats. You have only sheep. It's a kind of management again, okay? But if you put the animals in a forest like this, especially goats what we eat? Shrubs, and will regeneration as well. So this is the answer. And if we apply improper grazing, here is from the Hesses, from Spain. Because of the reduction of grazing, the shrubs are coming in. This is Cistus ladaniferus, which makes a very big problem with fires in Spain. And many dehesses are full of this spine. We have a student from Spain here. Okay. Maybe which part of Spain you are?
From Albacete,
Say again?
in the southeastern of Spain.
Southeastern. Southeast, from the dry part, okay? From the dry part, okay? For Almeria and all this kind, to the south, eh? What? North.
Near Valencia.
Near Valencia, okay, okay. Okay, this is from Badajoz, from Extremadura. The big problem there is because of the undergrazing, we have improper grazing, let's say. Undergrazing, improper grazing. Here is a, look, if you put here animals in this forest, nothing to graze. Okay. Or here you have, from Albania, it's erosion. So it's a matter of management, okay? I think we should make here we should make a break of 5 minutes. How many? Yeah. Okay, just a break, and then we'll go to restoration. Foresters think that all rangelands came from high forests after their destruction. This is the forest-oriented view. By humans, of course. And because of that, what they advocate, these people, advocate that we should all rangelands be converted to high forests, all of them, and to ban livestock grazing for Mediterranean forests, for Mediterranean ecosystems, and no rangelands, or even very few rangelands, only in the high mountains or very in the lowlands and so on. This is I call it a forestry-oriented view, because foresters think that rangelands should become high forests in order to be restored, to be converted, to become functional. The other view is the management-oriented view, which I support, of course. Rangelands evolved over the millennia by human interaction. It's not certain that all these areas were high forests in the past. There are views, I can tell you, even the authors who say that for the very beginning, with the present climate, all Mediterranean is a park-like area. It was a savanna type, open, half open, not dense forest, like in Northern Europe. Most rangelands cannot return to high forests by natural processes, but to some kind of woodlands. And woodlands have limited or no grazing capacity, and besides are very prone to wildfires. So with this view, the restoration target is to maintain livestock grazing, but under control management. And rangelands should be maintained in order to preserve the heterogeneity of the Mediterranean landscape. This is the beauty of the Mediterranean environment, this landscape. And this landscape, the Mediterranean landscape, is heterogeneous. And rangelands and grazing is very functional, very important to maintain this Mediterranean landscape, which all people come from the north in order to enjoy it in the summer, for example. Under this view, we should try to achieve the so-called desired rangeland. This is the potential ecosystem. No matter what is the potential, nobody knows what is the potential ecosystem. It's not clear in the literature, but after disturbance, it becomes desired rangeland. After prolonged disturbance, becomes degraded rangeland, and after irreversible disturbance, becomes desertified rangeland. Our target is to maintain the so-called desired rangeland. In other words, this and this should convert them to reach. Our target is to achieve the so-called desired rangeland. What is a desired rangeland? Desired rangeland or desired plant community is of the several plant communities that may occupy a site, from several, the one that has been identified through a management plan to best meet the plant's objectives for the site. That's what the Society for Range Management in the United States says about desired community? A community which best fits to the management objective. And what is the management objective? To produce food. Okay? The community which can produce food to the best, this is a desired plant community. Now, this plant community can be a state or a state tradition model, could be any plant community which can be maintained by management, can be described in species, life forms, or functional groups. In other words, we can describe this desired plant community with species which are present there, or the groups of species. Okay, it's clear. Our objective, our target in restoring the degraded Mediterranean rangeland. We should have in mind our target. The target is a desired plant community, the community which gives us, which meets the objective of the management. And in order to produce that, in order to achieve that, we have to manage the grazing process. This is the rangeland ecosystem, and this is the animals. All this you see here in this cycle is the grazing process. So grazing is not a simple word. It's a, look here, a whole array of things. So we have all of them to arrange so that to achieve this desired plant community. And what are these? The grazing factors. What is intensity of grazing, season of grazing, frequency of grazing, selectivity, mineral cycle, physical effects of management, plants, items, distribution of nutrients, minerals, animal behavior, other herbivores. Of course, this is a whole range management science. Just, I don't want to remember all these things. Just remember that the grazing is the connection between plants and animals. And this grazing is a complex process, so we have to control this grazing process in order to achieve the objective in restoration. Grazing affects the structure and function of the ecosystems, the positive and negative effects, and grazing management, as I said, are appropriate and inappropriate. What are the positive effects of grazing, which we should consider, is that assists thinning through sprout control. For example, if we have a forest here, and we want this forest to stay clear of the undisturbed vegetation, then we put animals to control the animals. This is a positive effect of the animals. Or if we want to improve the soil fertility, the manure is also a good material to produce to improve the soil fertility. Why? Because animals convert the plant material to nutrients, to minerals, which are directly absorbed by plants. Otherwise, the plant material has to be decomposed through the natural processes. Okay? Let me repeat that. The plants need minerals, need nitrogen, need phosphorus, need sodium, okay? Need calcium. And these are all in the organic matter. Okay? For example, this material here has all these things, but plants cannot take them from here. Somebody must must break down all this material, and this is done by natural process, which is the decomposition. But decomposition needs good temperature and moisture. In the Mediterranean region, we have very good, very high temperature in the summer, very good temperature, but no rain, no moisture, so no decomposition in the summer. In the winter, we have a lot of we have moisture, but the temperature is very low. So only in the spring and the autumn there is some decomposition. But animals can do the same job by eating this material and convert them to manure. So why not use the animals? Of course, there are negative effects, chewing up the regeneration, as you said before, or soil trampling. But this, again, is a matter of management. Now, let's move now to real restoration tools. In order to restore a degraded rangeland, we need to cross two thresholds. The biotic interactions and the abiotic interactions. In a degraded rangeland, both of these thresholds have been broken, have been crossed. For example, we have lost soil, we have erosion, we have reduced soil fertility, but at the same time we lost also species. So both of these are happening in degraded rangeland. So in order to restore this rangeland, we must reestablish the biotic interactions and the abiotic limitations. Abiotic, I mean the environmental. And biotic is the plants. The plants and the animals, of course. Now, of these two thresholds, what grazing process can do? Can grazing restore the fertility of the soil or the erosion, the soil which is lost? For example, if we have a rangeland which lost soil, erosion, can with grazing bring back the soil? Obviously not. How can we? Can we with grazing increase the fertility of the soil in the previous state? Not easy. But with grazing can control the species composition, the biotic interactions, the relationships. Because if we put grazing there, we can reduce some plants on the benefit of the others or at the expense of the others. So you can control the, okay? So in other words, by adjusting the grazing management in a degraded rangeland, we cannot achieve everything. Let's make it more clear now. In order to restore a rangeland, we need two kinds of measures, the soft measures and the hard measures. The soft measures are appropriate grazing management, in other words, adjusting livestock numbers, selecting the right kind of animals, and adopting the proper grazing system. These are soft measures related to the management. We can do that with grazing. But we need also hard measures, technical words to prevent erosion. We can do that with animals only. We cannot restore fertility only with animals. We need to apply fertilizers or to bring some soil there from another area and so on. Or if species have disappeared completely, we cannot bring them only with grazing management. We should plant some species as well, and or combine all these measures. Let's see some examples of this. The hard measures. To build roads for the animals or for the trucks to go to the rangeland. This is the hard measure. Or to develop a shelter for the animals to protect from the sun or from the rain. Or to make a watering point or a water reserve. Why would we need these technical measures? Because these measures improve the distribution of the grazing of the animals. So instead of having the animals concentrated in the same area, if we build roads, watering points all over, and shelters on, the animals will be distributed, so the pressure will be less in a particular area, the pressure will spread, so we have a kind of improvement and restoration of the rangeland. Do you follow me? Any questions, any objections, Okay, so we need technical works to improve the distribution of the animals. This is needs money, needs a plan, a project. And then we come to the vegetation improvements, like reseeding, using a seeder to make a particular rangeland like this one. Okay, this is a degraded, so we plant speed. Look, it becomes a different picture here, different. Okay, or to plant shrubs for the sheep or for the goats in an area which is not enough food and the rangeland is degraded. So these are vegetation improvements. The previous was technical works. And the most important thing in the Mediterranean rangeland is to combine resources in order to alleviate the problem. In other words, rangelands cannot give food to the animals the whole year around for 12 months. Rangelands can produce food, plant, forage for 6 months, 7 months at the most. Then is the summer which is dry or is the winter which is very cold. So we need, but the animals need food every day, like us. We need to eat every day. So if the rangeland produces feed only for 6 months, then we need to combine other resources. And which are the sources? Could be hay, could be a cereal pasture, could be a forest fire break, a cereal stubble, or for the shrubs. We have to combine all of them in order to alleviate the problem. In other words, we have to look at the whole system, not only the rangeland, but what the animals need in other seasons in order to be fed, and not press on rangelands. And now I'll move to some case studies. The first is from central Tunisia, a case study. This project was run by the government of Tunisia. I just visited the area and saw it. Okay, it's not my project. Okay? Just to clear things out. So in central Tunisia is arid Mediterranean climate, less than 350 millimeters rainfall. We have how many people from Tunisia? One only. Only you are from Tunisia? Only you. Okay. It's central Tunisia, okay? Not to the south, where you live, just to the
And the island in the south, Jerba.
further north, okay? Okay. Highly degraded due to overgrazing in this particular zone, and the government set a restoration target to plant shrubs to stop the erosion and produce forage for livestock. This is a very big story in northern, not only in Tunisia but in all northern Africa. Many years ago, the foresters who were in charge of the management of this particular rangelands introduced in all these degraded rangelands the Acacia cyanophylla, a shrub. Acacia, now it's called Acacia salicina, but now that was called Acacia cyanophylla. I think it's Australian shrub, introduced to northern Africa, leguminous, of course, and the foresters introduced that to in northern Africa, making huge plantations with shrub, mainly to produce firewood for the people, fuel wood for the people, but also for the animals to graze. But it turned out that this plant is not grazed so much by animals, and so this plantation was useless for the animals. On addition, they were criticized that they brought an alien species to Northern Africa and ignored all the local species which are there in North Africa, in Tunisia as well. So there was big criticism. And this project, of course, was financed by international organizations, by FAO, by World Bank, and so on. All this money came from abroad, not from the governments. So in this particular project, the government decided to change target, not to plant shrubs alien, but local shrubs grown in Tunisia. So they developed a restoration project which included technical works with stones, shrub introduction, alien or indigenous, but alien was dropped after this discussion, and control the grazing by the community, by the government, as our friend from Iran said. The government will control the grazing there in Tunisia. The restoration measures we decided were hard and soft, both vegetation and technical words. And eventually they increased forage production up to 5 tons of dry matter per hectare, which is quite a lot of material for this particular area with so little rainfall. Let's see some of this. Stone wall dams to stop the erosion, holes here to plant shrubs, and here they planted shrubs. This is the Acacia silicia xenophila, the older plant which used in the past. But because of the criticism they had about this particular species, they decided to change and use the stone walls here. Look, put stones in lines. They collected all the stones in lines, and in between they put shrubs. Many people worked here from the villages. I remember people working for the villages were very happy because they had jobs to do that, okay? So they planted shrubs, indigenous shrubs this time, in between. So the walls were holding the water and also the erosion. And in between they had these shrubs, and then they put people to control the grazing. I'm not sure if the project now has succeeded in terms of controlling the grazing, because it's very difficult. I've done that here in this country, and it was difficult to control grazing in a local community. If the local community have 20 people, 20 shepherds, 20 farmers, and 19 of them agree to the project, and one does not agree, so the whole project falls down, okay? So it's difficult to have the all farmers to agree in a particular project for controlling the grazing. So I'm not sure if this project was successful to the end. But anyway, I like very much the approach to making these stone walls and planting all these particular shrubs, local indigenous shrubs. And animals knew them how to eat.
Sorry, this stone is just in the surface of the soil,
Yeah.
or a little deeper?
It was spread, it was just surface stones, and people were collecting them by hand.
Yes, I see, but is, for example, half meter in the soil, the stone, or not?
No, surface stone, only surface stone, very degraded. Surface stones, they increased also the productive area. By collecting the stones, they also increased the productive area of the rain.
But they make because of the harvest of the water, or?
Mainly for erosion control,
Okay.
and then to increase the area available for grazing, because with less stones, more area was available for grazing. Do you understand? If the stones occupy 30% of the area of the rangeland, if you collect them, you increase the area available for grazing, because the stones were spread on the surface.
It's not because of the control of the animals.
No, not for the animals. For the stones. What is it?
Yes, a stone is just for water, stop the water
Yeah.
erosion.
The main reason is for erosion, to control the erosion, to make like terraces making.
But the area is not sloppy.
No, it's not. But still, there was some slope, so they were afraid of having that. Also, collecting water. These stone walls, also they collect the water. They function like channels.
Like
A channel.
A small catchment area.
It's more exactly. Yeah. Now we moved out to South Portugal. In South Portugal, it's a semi-arid Mediterranean climate, 6 millimeters rainfall. It's a degraded agro-silvopastoral system, Montado, with Quercus suber and Quercus ilex. Traditional land use, rotation of bare fallow, wheat, oats, followed by 6 years grazing. Maybe I give you an idea of how this, in South Portugal, the big farms called Montado, probably Christina can explain to us much better here about South Portugal.
I think I spoke about Montado.
You spoke, okay. So they already know.
Work was on Montado and I explained them what was Montado. It's a
Okay.
satellite system which has the Quercus suber or Quercus.
Okay. So it's a repetition then. In these farms, they rotate fallow, wheat, and oats, and grazing as well. And restoration target was a sustainable silvopastoral system. So the restoration project included seeding with a mixture of legumes and grasses, fertilization, appropriate grazing with cattle and sheep. And the restoration measures were hard and soft as well. And the end result was increased of stocking rate more than 8 times. Let me show you some pictures to explain you why. So this is a degraded Montado with a lot of weed echium, which is very unpalatable to animals. So this is considered as these are trees. These are, I think, is ilex, Quercus ilex, maybe suber, look like ilex. But this is a weed which is not eaten by the animals. So what they did, they plowed the area and planted legumes like this one. So this could convert to this one, and then they put the animals. So the increase was 8 times more than the production compared to that one. Okay?
So when you say production,
Forage production, the feed for the animals, the grasses, the grass production which animals eat. We call them forage production. Okay. Another problem is, as I said before, especially in Spain, is this shrub encroachment because of the abandonment. Because of this abandonment, not only of grazing but also of plowing. As I said before, in these systems they rotate plowing and grazing after some years. So this plowing controls the invasion of the shrubs. Once you stop the the plowing, then these shrubs appear, and these shrubs are not palatable by the animals, they're not eaten, and also they're very flammable. They can burn very easily. So in these particular areas also they do the same thing. They plow, they put legumes, forage legumes, which animals eat. Could be subterranean clover, could be medicago species, especially subterranean clover, and some annual grasses as well, like Lolium rigidum, for example. And then they have increased production for the sheep. So this is a restoration of degraded, not, of course, we don't have erosion here, but we have degradation because of the species which are present are not good for the animals, okay? So this, because that's considered also a degraded rangeland. Another success story is from Sardinia. This is a shrubland, Macchia, is called in Italy, Sardinia. So there was a wildfire here, accidental wildfire, which burnt the whole shrubland. What they did after the people there, they seeded on the ash after the fire. They seeded desirable legumes and grasses which are eaten by the animals. So look what happened after 1 year after the seeding. So it became a very, very nice rangeland which has no erosion. Okay, no erosion. Besides, there's a lot of plants which are good for the animals. Here another case from Spain. Here this is in southeastern Spain. Southeastern Spain is in the near South to Almeria. I don't remember the exact location of the area. Here you see the area is very dry, and the rangelands are very degraded as well. What they did there was they planted shrubs. This is a triplex numularia in cereal fields. So animals, this cereal field in between is plowed and planted with wheat every year. But after the wheat is harvested, then they put the animals, and the animals eat the stubble, something which is very common in the Mediterranean countries. Animals in the summer, they are moved to the cereal stubble. After you harvest the cereal or the wheat in general, the cereals in general, the wheat in particular, then you put the animals in the stubble to eat what is there, what is left in the summer. But here in Spain, they thought that this cereal is not enough food for the animals to survive in the summer. So they planted this Atriplex numularia as supplemental feed to the animals. And you see, although everything is dry around, especially the herbaceous species, this shrub is green because it grows in the summer. It's very dry resistant. And so sheep are very happy. They ate up all the cereal, but also now they eat the green leaves of the numularia, which has protein. The cereal provides the carbohydrates to the animals, like us. So we eat bread for carbohydrates. But then we need protein as well, okay? So this is a source of protein for the animals and minerals as well, like us. Yes, yeah. please, please.
You just have a trade-off with the next year crop, because you have the A-triplex will compete with the wheat over the nutrients and water.
Yes, compete. Not here. Not this. It's still in line. Street. Okay, you combine. It's a system.
It's probably they created an agro-silvopastorale system with the planting of A-triplex.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that. Yeah. Not trees, shrubs.
Shrubs, yes,
But
wood species, yes.
wood species, yes. But this is a very effective plan in southeast Spain, which is the most driest part of Spain. Is the southeast part. Murcia is Murcia, that plan. Okay, which is a very dry area. But the same thing, the same project, the same idea of combining of planting shrubs in the cereal fields is also applied in Northern Africa. Now, for your you're right in part for your competition, but you can put the lines wider. It's up to the management plan. Okay. Probably the farmer was based more on sheep than on cereal. Okay. All right. Now, another project from here from northern Greece, which I was involved, it's a subhumid Mediterranean climate, more than 600 millimeters rainfall. And the area was a degraded Kermes oak shrub land. Kermes oak is the Quercus coccifera, it's a shrub, evergreen shrub. Traditional land use is in this particular area was to combine wildfires and grazing. Why? Because the shrubs are very competitive. Sheep cannot eat shrubs, so the farmers used to put fires there to control the shrub and then graze the animals. So it's a traditional system. The restoration target was to convert the shrublands to open, the dense shrublands to open shrublands. The project involved prescribed burning, I'll tell you about that later, seeding with a mixture of grasses and legumes, and appropriate grazing with goats. Restoration measures were hard and soft again, and the result increased of animal production by more than 4 times. I said before that the fire is part of the Mediterranean environment, and in reality, the first people who came in this in our area back in the Neolithic period, they used fire to open up the landscape. Okay, they burned the area. They used the fire. They found the fire here, so they used it. But the idea is that now, and so people thought that fire is also just an enemy, because it destroys again the forest. The foresters developed again the idea that fire, like goats, are enemies to the forest. But now all these things changed again, and we found that fire is a natural factor. It exists in nature, so you can use fire as a management tool, like goats. Instead of preventing the fire, which is difficult to prevent the fire, and as a matter of fact, the reason we have many fires in the Mediterranean region, and not only in region but also in other fire-prone areas like California, Australia, they blame the so-called fire suppression policy. Fire suppression policy. What is this policy? People were afraid of fire. So once they saw just a fire come in, they just rushed to wipe it out, to stop it. But by stopping the fire, the fuel accumulates. And the next time that the fire comes, it will be difficult to control. And then it becomes a wildfire. And that happened in California, that happened in Australia, and that happened now in northern Mediterranean, in southern Europe, where many wildfires. In Portugal, We have many wildfires. Some years ago we had many wildfires in Portugal as well, in other Mediterranean countries, because of this fire suppression policy. Why? Because fire is natural factor, so he has to burn. I mean, he has to let the fire to burn. But of course, to let which fire? Not the wildfire, the natural fire. Systems should be burned from once in a while in order to be functional. So, based on this situation, scientists developed the idea of prescribed burning, using, in other words, burning as a tool to control the management. And here, what we did in our experiment, this was a dense shrubland. So we put a fire, and we convert that to this particular area. How we put it? First, we open fire lines around, and we put the fire so that the fire not be very, very big. See, fire needs to put in a certain way, so not to be too big. For example, if you have a slope, and you put the fire down in the slope, then everything will be burned out very fast. But if you put the fire in the top of the slope, then the fire will go very slowly. Okay? So we applied such techniques, and we received that particular landscape, and then we seeded grasses on the ash just right after the fire. Ash is like a very good fertilizer and very soft. If you drop the seeds on the ash, then the seeds are self-covered because it's very soft. But you have to do that right after the fire, and then it turned out to be like this. Shrubs came up again, but not so dense as in the previous. So we developed this particular area. And here's the plan. We have two treatments, burning and not burning, or just only, and then three repetitions, three replications, and this is what we received. So compare now this one with this one.
Can I ask something?
Yeah.
Did you take any measures about the resprouting of the Kermes oak?
No, because Kermes oak is grazed by goats, but they cannot fully control it because it's very strong shrub. So you have to, from time to time, to repeat the technique. After some years, again to burn if it goes too fast, because shrub, Kermes oak, this particular shrub, is very strong. That's why it survives in the environment, because it's very strong, despite the overgrazing and so on. Another success story is this particular was a communal rangeland, very heavily grazed. So we decided to make an agroforestry system, like Apostle said. We planted Robinia pseudoacacia, which is a leguminous tree, and look what happened. Compare, imagine this area with trees. And but what we did in this particular project is we put also tubes, plastic tubes, in the trees, so animals were grazing there, but they could not eat the trees
Like
because
shelters for the trees.
for the trees,
Use the trees.
shelters. I forgot to put a picture on shelters, but probably you'll see that in another occasion. So that's another case, to develop an agroforestry system with trees which produce forage to the animals, because these leaves are very, very palatable to the animals. Also the fruits they produce here are also eaten by the animals. So it's another case to restore degraded rangelands. Now,
Sorry,
yes,
did you saw any facilitation effect from the trees to the grassland community?
yes. Under the trees were very green, the grass was very green, but the way the trees was very dry
Yes.
because of the nitrogen, because this Robinia is a legume, it fixes nitrogen. So all the grass which near the tree were green in the winter because of the nitrogen. That's another
There was another advantage.
advantage of planting trees.
So, question about fire. You mentioned
Yeah.
as a tool to manage the rangeland area, because there is some opposite and agreement idea about the using fire in rangeland management. Because some researchers said fire directly affect on biological organism of the soil and kill this organism and reduce. Sometimes said increase the sulfur in the soil and maybe as contamination of the soil. What is about your idea? Did you have a extra research about this in the soil, or you didn't have?
Well, I'll tell you. If after a fire you lose a lot of nitrogen, the organic material has nitrogen. This nitrogen goes to the atmosphere, so you lose that. But other minerals like calcium, potassium, they're freed and they get to the soil. So the ash then is very good fertilizer, but you lose nitrogen. Okay. However, because of the increased temperature that goes over the fire, the available nitrogen in the soil increases because the organic matter releases nitrogen after the high temperature.
Yes, but it has also, I forgot to say, two negative also aspects. Other is climate change and also
Yeah.
is compaction, because after fire, soil has the moisture is reduced and there is compaction.
Well, this is true in some areas. Yes, we have this compaction, but in our Mediterranean areas, we haven't found that like in California, for example.
Yes.
Look here, fire is part of the ecosystem. Okay, the prescribed burning is imitating not the wildfire but the natural fire. It's very light fire, so it does produce very high temperatures. It not consumes too much fuel, so actually it's an imitation of the natural fire which always happened. Okay, so of course you lose some nitrogen, but you see nitrogen circulates. It was again fixed by, fixed by legumes and comes back to the soil as well. But for the climatic change, yes. But you're speaking about big fires, forest fires, which produce a lot of smoke and so on. Okay, I'm not I'm speaking about the small, controlled, and natural fire. Yes.
I would like also to ask you a question, but not about the wildfire, about the use of Robinia Sedotekia,
Yeah.
the other experiment that you presented. Previously, you mentioned that there was a huge criticism in Tunisia when they use an alien species.
Yeah.
Do you have something similar observations in Greece when
Yes,
you use
yes.
Robinia or other
Well,
non-native species?
Robinia is also a species in question in many Mediterranean countries, especially in Italy. It's considered in Italy it's considered as weed, so people advise not to use it. But we found here in the semi-dry Mediterranean environment, the Robinia does not spread like in moist environments. Look, Robinia comes from subtropical America, subtropical North America, so it needs enough moisture, especially air moisture, air humidity to grow. But in our environment, it was found that it adapts very well in semi-dry environments without spreading very much, even not at all if you don't damage it. The problem is if you put the Robinia in near waterways, near the roads where there is a lot of water, then it spreads. personally, I think it's a very valuable species. We can use that, of course, not everywhere, but in some environments which does not help to spread. But there is a lot of discussion in literature. Yes.
However, I asked it because it is the main species that used during the afforestation
Yeah.
project in Greece
Without
agricultural lands.
Without problems. We don't have big problems with. But in Italy they have problems because they plant that near the rivers, near the lakes, and a lot of moisture there, and also in other countries. In other words, you have to be careful where to plant. But it's a very fast-growing species. It is a leguminous, fixed nitrogen, a very good timber quality. The quality of timber is very good. It's very good for parquet, very strong. And in Hungary is the main forest tree species in Hungary. Robinia pseudocacea is the main tree species in Hungary. Well, to finish up now, because time is about the grazing planning. So, in order to restore degraded rangeland, we have to make some grazing planning. What is this grazing planning? We must put grazing as part of the restoration plan. Unfortunately, I must say that most restoration plans do not include grazing as part of restoration measure. Because of this preoccupation that grazing is dangerous and so on, like so many other things. But grazing must become part of the restoration plan. Grazing management should be appropriate, proper management. Okay? This is the issue. Then livestock should be provided with alternative feed resources, not only rangelands, in order to alleviate the problem of degradation. And we must be very careful in the community grazed rangelands how to arrange to control the grazing plan. And farmers must be involved in the restoration plan, not away from the farmers, the shepherds. I think that grazing should be included in the restoration plans to avoid any resistance, any unrest by local people. Unfortunately, many restoration plans are done without the consent of the local people. And people then resist. They say, okay, what do you do in my area? Why do that? Local people must be involved in this particular project, especially if for rangelands. And the conclusions, Mediterranean rangelands have a historical trajectory of evolution with the presence of large herbivores. In other words, Mediterranean rangelands are evolved together with animals. Okay? Most of the degraded Mediterranean rangelands can be restored to sustain ecosystems, most of them, not all of them. Some of them have been irreversibly damaged. Degraded grazing lands that resulted from inappropriate grazing activities can be restored by grazing management. In other words, the first thing to do in a degraded rangeland is to apply first proper grazing management, and then go to the hard measures, which are very costly and very dangerous and create another problem. First, to try to control, and I've written an article on this subject. Oh, sorry. I have written in journal Restoration Ecology. I wrote an article in 2009. You can find that in the internet, which says that how to restore degraded rangeland based only on grazing on proper grazing management. In other words, before we go to the expensive measures, planting trees, planting shrubs, making stone walls and so on, let's adjust first the grazing management. But if the physical environment is damaged, then more decisive measures are needed. Grazing management is not enough. And grazing management should be part of any plan that is implemented to restore degraded rangelands. And this is from Tunisia. You see the plant there, Opuntia, very good food. If you go to Tunisia, please just try to eat this food produced from Opuntia. It's planted all over the many areas. And this is also part of the restoration of degraded rangelands. Thank you very much.